Evening guys, James and Jacqueline from Mind and Body Detox. I hope you're well. So we're going to discuss a little bit about antacids and omeprazole, and I brought Jacqueline along because this is more of her expertise than mine. No pressure. But a couple of reasons why I wanted to tackle this subject was, last year we posted a something about this particular topic.
News article.
Yeah, and it got a tremendous amount of, Evening Debbie, a tremendous amount of interaction. Some really positive ones from people that hadn't really looked at the side effects, and we made them aware of that, and then they looked to take new measures. And some other people that said, well, I've been on it for 15 years and it's not done me any damage, which is absolutely fine. But as we will always say, we'll always urge you to look at what the repercussions are and do your own research. Not just what a doctor says or what we say, but do your own research so you can come to your own conclusions.
And I'd be so bold to say the people that have been on them long term, it hasn't done you any damage, then you are incredibly lucky, because either two things are happening. It either hasn't done you any damage yet, or you just don't know about the damage that it has done so far.
And you're not aware of that. You've become so used to feeling that particular way that you can't remember how good you used to feel, or if you used to feel in that way. Plus the fact as well, compared to last year, we have a tremendous amount of more people following us now, and they might not have seen that post from last October, so we'll give them some new information.
But I think also it's just worth sharing some of the stories that we've had on the back of that post over the last year,
yep,
which have just been incredible, where people have come forward and said, thank you so much, I'm now off of them. So for every person that kind of gave us a little bit of stick over that post, I've probably
We're used to that.
water off a duck's back.
Absolutely.
I probably had 5 or 6 that have come to me and said, because of that, I have taken myself off of them. So well done if you are one of those people. It's amazing. Then they're notoriously hard to come off of, and I will cover that in a moment.
And I've got a couple of case studies, and you know, we are very candid and we're very open about certain situations, and at least 3 members of my family have been on omeprazole for a long period of time, and they've all come off them. One being my mum, and she was on it for 20 years. So I'll give you a little bit more of a backstory, but Jacqueline will just go into a little bit more detail, and then we'll share a couple of case studies that we had recently. So I'll leave it to you.
Right, so first of all, when we're talking about omeprazole, it's not just omeprazole. There are a whole range of drugs that are called proton pump inhibitors, and they all end in zole, Z-O-L-E. So omeprazole is probably one of the most prescribed, but other ones that you may have been prescribed or have heard of is lansoprazole, esomeprazole, pantoprazole. You'll see there's a theme there, they all end in zole, but they are proton pump inhibitors, and what that basically does is it turns off the pump that produces acid in the stomach. The reason that doctors want that to happen is because if you go to them and say, I've got heartburn, they automatically think you've got too much acid, let's turn it off. That's actually quite warped, it's actually quite wrong, because if you and I had a lot of stomach acid, we'd be quite healthy. And the reason that you'd be quite healthy is because you need stomach acids to digest your food, you need stomach acid in abundance to assimilate all of your vitamins and nutrients, to absorb them, and for everything to be working peachy. So actually most people don't have enough stomach acid, rather than having too much, or they're not looking at the root cause of exactly why you have that gastrointestinal reflux, where the burning is in the esophagus. They're not looking at the root cause of that. 9 out of 10 times, and don't quote me on the 9 out of 10 times, but in my experience, when people come to me with acid reflux, the one thing that we find is Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacteria that resides underneath the esophagus, in the bottom of the stomach. If it's left untreated, it can go on to cause duodenum ulcers and in the long-term stomach cancer. Now, you may be interested to know that long-term use of omeprazole, there was a study, and it was a cohort study, which is a very good study, published in a peer-reviewed journal called Gut, stated that long-term use of proton pump inhibitors more than doubled the risk of stomach cancer. So you might be thinking, what is long-term use? Well, last year, and I actually printed it out before we came on air, I went to the Medscape website and just printed out the study so I could get all my facts right. But last year, new guidelines for prescribing proton pump inhibitors were released to doctors because they were worried about the amount of length of time that people have been on them. And they said, so this is FDA and NICE guidelines, said that you should not be on them for more than 4 weeks. And I have got clients that have been on them since birth, and I've got a lovely little girl who's 4 years old, and she's been on them since birth. And as James will go on to tell you, his mum had been on them for 20 plus years. So these people are left on them, and that is the issue. People are put on them, left on them, and then nobody's looking at whether they're actually working or doing anything. They're not doing anything, they're just masking the root cause. No one's looking at the root cause, and that is a big issue. Plus, you have this risk of stomach cancer if you're using them for long term, which is a really huge issue, obviously. And if you're looking at over-the-counter alternatives, so things like Gaviscon and Rene, they actually contain high amounts of aluminium. And aluminium is found in the brains of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, motor neuron disease, multiple sclerosis. So that's a big no-no as well.
And my mum was swigging, I think, a whole bottle a day.
Listen. Remember when I was pregnant with pregnant with our youngest, our eldest, Angelica, who's now 10. I had horrendous heartburn through my pregnancy, and I must have been getting through two bottles of Gaviscon a week, because I didn't have this knowledge then. So I'm not saying, you use lot, you need to sort your lives out because you've never done your research. I'm saying I wish I had this information, and now I do have this information. I want to share it. I want to share it with you guys, because not everybody will tell you this.
Oh, thank you, Beverly. It's very sweet of you.
Hi, Beverly. So the other things that I just wanted to cover really quickly is, so how it's working is it's turning off your proton pump inhibitor. The proton pump inhibitor is what pumps out acid in the stomach. The reason that is really needed is because you need your stomach acid to be able to digest your food well, but you also need it to utilise and assimilate all your vitamins and minerals and nutrients. So what happens when you have your proton pump inhibitor turned off long term is you become mineral and vitamin deficient in lots of different areas, because you haven't got that acid to start to assimilate all of those. Particularly vitamin B12, because that is produced in the stomach, in the intrinsic factor in the stomach, and that you can become severely deficient in B12 if you've been on omeprazole for long term. Now, when I come across clients that have been on omeprazole long term, they are often on antidepressants as well. Reason being, vitamin B12 is something that regulates your moods, your central nervous system. When you become very low in B12 unknowingly, it can be confused with depression. So sometimes it's a double whammy. We kill two birds with one stone when we take them off the omeprazole and we give better replacements, holistic replacements, which I can go on to in a minute. We can get them off their antidepressants as well, which is amazing. But as a sideline, if you are on proton pump inhibitor at the moment, like omeprazole, you should be taking a B12 supplement, and the best B12 supplement will be a liquid B12, because you won't be absorbing it in your gut if it's a tablet form. And the best way to do that is methylcobalamin B12, because that is a non-synthetic form of B12. So this all sounds really complicated, so I'm just going to make it super easy for you. Go onto Amazon. There is a really good brand called Yoga Nutrition. It does liquid B12 drops, and it actually says Yoga Nutrition liquid B12 non-synthetic. And I think it's about £20. It'll last you a month. So at least you're getting your B12 while you're on them. Should I go on to if you want to come off of them?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's worth tapping in that I would say probably 3/4 of the people that we have in here are on antidepressants.
Probably, yeah. Probably. And the other thing that I had a really interesting case study from somebody.
Jade just said, I've recently just taken. So when you come and see us, Jade, that will not happen.
We will have a chat about that, Jade. We will have a little chat about that, because that is unnecessary and we can squash that straight away. So I had a case just last week. A lovely lady come to see me, and I often ask my clients, if you've had any recent medical tests, bring your notes, I can have a look through them. She started telling me all about her symptoms. She told me that she got herself off of omeprazole last year after she saw our original post. So amazing, high five to you. And she said, but she's getting lots and lots of different symptoms still, like the heartburn. And she went to have a colonoscopy where they put the camera in, and I said, did they check for H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, which is a bacteria that builds up in the stomach, can cause ulcers. It's one of the main causes of gastrointestinal reflux. She said, yeah, I haven't got that. I said, so they've put the camera in, you haven't got it? She went, no, I haven't got that. So we done a bioresonance scan, took 25 minutes to do the scan, picked up in the frequencies in the body, and the first frequency it picked up at a very high level in the duodenum, causing a gastric ulcer and an erosion in the duodenum wall, was Helicobacter pylori.
Shock horror.
So they've either missed it on the colonoscopy, or they didn't think it was a high enough level to worry about, but it was a frequency in her body that was causing a symptom, so now we're dealing with it. So just because sometimes you've been told you don't have it, it's not necessarily the case. If you've still got the symptom, you need to be digging a little bit deeper as to what the root cause is. So some of the root causes of acid reflux, if you don't have Helicobacter pylori, it could be diet related, so foods that are very starchy, gluten, wheat, often dairy, other bacteria that aren't Helicobacter pylori, food intolerances. There's lots of different reasons. So Lucy's saying, what would you suggest for children on omeprazole? What I would suggest is finding out the root cause. Why do they need it? I'm working with 3 different children at the moment, all under the age of about 4, maybe. Oh no, because I've got a couple that are about 8 or 9.
Yep.
So I'm probably working with about 6 actually. And they have been on it since birth, put on it because they were having throwing their feed. And we've looked at what the root cause is. We found the root cause. We've made amendments to their diet and to supplementation, started to rebuild the integrity of the gut again, checked to see that there's no damage to the duodenum, all of that. So it's unfortunately, I'd love to say to you, just take this and it's all going to go away, but that's going to mask it just like omeprazole is. The other thing I want to cover really quickly before James goes on to some case studies is then I said at the beginning they're notoriously difficult to come off of. The reason they're notoriously difficult to come off of, in the example I really use, because I do love an analogy and I just think it makes things so simple for people to understand, is if you had a plumber come to your house and they turned off the water mains, when the water mains gets turned back on again, the water kind of shoots out. When you have a proton pump inhibitor and it turns off your acid mains, your proton pump, what's going to happen when you stop that and you turn it back on again? It's going to squirt out. So you get something called acid rebound. So what traditionally happens is people come off of the proton pump inhibitor and then a day or 2 later they're in agony and they say, I can't do this, I can't take it, I'm going to have to go back on them. There, you don't have to suffer while that is going on. First of all, the acid rebound doesn't last. It's just that build up, and eventually once you've got the diet and the other interventions good and you're clearing the bacteria out, if it is Helicobacter pylori for example, if you're clearing that out, Candida even, clearing that out, once that's gone, then obviously the rebound will go. But in the meantime, there are good supplements that you can use that will stop that acid feeling and that burning feeling and that discomfort and not being able to sleep and laying down thinking that your top half of your body's on fire. You don't have to suffer like that. There's a brilliant product by an award-winning company called Enzymedica. And Enzymedica do a whole range of gastrointestinal supplements, and they're all holistic ingredients, all kind of herbs, and it works amazingly well. I've had really good feedback from clients and family, and that product is called Acid Soothe. So get yourself some Acid Soothe, take 2 after each meal, and while you're coming off of proton pump inhibitors, you won't get that acid rebound. But obviously we need to be looking at the root cause as well.
Cool. So I will go into a really personal one. So unfortunately, I won't go into too much detail, but when I was born, my mum was in labour with me for 36 hours, and we both nearly...
I'm wondering, was it worth it? Just going to say, of course it was.
My soldier.
That's my boy.
We both nearly didn't make it, and ever since, off the back of that, she has been incredibly ill. And obviously, since we've been doing what we've been doing the last 3 or 4 years, she's bought into more of that as we've kind of gone through it, and we've taken on a tremendous journey from where she was to where she is now. We've still got a long way to go, but I just wanted to share kind of a couple of notes that she made for me when we were going to talk about this. So she said, go on.
Sorry, 1 second. June has just said Enzymedical. No, it's Enzymedica, but what I will do is I will post a link to the product in the comments, so you can all go and have a look. It's about £18 for a month's supply. I knew she'd come on and say that. That's James's mum going, it was all worth it.
So she started taking omeprazole 18 years ago after a major stomach operation. She had 2 duodenal ulcers and 50 bleeding peptic ulcers. Now, she's an exceptionally brave woman. I remember she used to literally go and have an endoscopy put down, and they would pick along at her ulcers. And she wouldn't make any kind of wimp about it. She would just get on with it. And she had a hiatus hernia as well. She shares that the operation was a huge success, but she still had lots of acid, and that was the reason they put her on omeprazole, which is about 20 milligrams once a day. And they pretty much said to her that she'd be on that for the rest of her life. She then said, after James and Jacqueline advised me to an alternative to omeprazole, she thought that that would never happen, as the GP would have taken her off of years ago. Now, with all due respect, a general practitioner is not going to have that knowledge. They are just general practitioners, they're not specialists. She shares that she used to wake up every morning feeling very nauseous, stomach was swollen, pins and needles in her fingers, and a blocked nasal passage, and she felt lifeless pretty much on most days. So she thought and she did actually try it once, and like you said, she couldn't deal with the rebound and went back on it, and kind of 6 months later we let it die down, shared the facts again, went through that process.
But also in this time, we also put her on lots of different vitamins and minerals.
Yeah,
We've done a hair tissue mineral analysis. So we got her supplements and we got her levels really strong. So when she came off it the second time, the rebound didn't happen.
And then she goes to say, but I thought I grabbed the ball by the horns eventually, and after reading all the dreadful side effects and came off the omeprazole, I can honestly say I've never felt this good in 37 years. I'm now 37, Mum. As all of the above problems started in the mid-20s, and because she's probably one of our biggest fans, she then goes on to say how amazing we are.
But she read, this is something that I didn't know, so she then read up, because her nasal passage cleared up, her nasal blockages issues cleared up, so she went on and read up about it, and she said to me, did you know that one of the side effects of omeprazole is blocked nasal passage? Well, I didn't know that, so you learn something every day.
And it's great, again, although she's my mum, but she's done her own research, and that's what we ask people to do.
But they were going to give her an operation to unblock her nasal passage as well, so that was completely needless.
Again, not find out what is that root cause, rather than have to go through the trauma of going under anaesthetic and having a major operation, rather than really digging and finding out. There was one other case study that I wanted to share. That's when we originally shared it around October last year. And this lady, and I'm reading it from the Facebook then, said, a few months ago you posted an article regarding omeprazole. My dad has suffered from depression for 20 plus years and has been on this medication for the last 20 years. I showed him the article, and after finally persuading him to go to the doctors, his mental health had been declining. He mentioned the article, and the doctor's response was, funny you should say that. He has now been taken off omeprazole and they're reviewing his medications, which is fantastic. If it hadn't been for a friend sharing your page in this post, I would never have seen it. I truly believe that this med has not helped his depression. I just wanted to say thank you for posting about this. Your book is on my to-do list and I can't wait to read it. So what I would urge you to do, guys, is if this has resonated with you, or you know somebody that has had this or is going through this, please share it, because it might just make a significant difference in their lives.
Absolutely. So if you're on the Mind Body Miracle community, if you're not, request to join the Mind Body Miracle community, but if you are in the Mind Body Miracle community, you would have seen that I posted on Saturday all the different medications that are notorious for side effects and actually quite easy to come off of once you address the root cause. So just think about, what medications are you on? Are they masking anything? Are they actually addressing the root cause? I severely doubt it. And you know, there are so many medications that are necessary. I'm like saying that through gritted teeth.
You don't believe that?
That's because I can't actually tell people to come off of medication. It has to be their decision.
Absolutely.
But I also believe that there are ways around these things, and a lot of the time I see people that are on a significant amount of unnecessary medication that's doing them more harm than good in the long term. Medication's great at fighting fires, but once that fire is out, you shouldn't stay on it for very long.
And I was just training a set of clients on our reboot program, and one lady just shared with me that she said that her mother is on about 20 tablets. So I said there's lots of contraindications going on there. They don't know how tablet A is reacting with tablet B, let alone tablet A with all of them plus tablet Z. They're not going to know how that's going to react in the body.
Yeah, because each medication is probably prescribed by a different specialist. And one of the things that I do when, bless you.
Thank you.
One of the things that I do when I am with a client is I ask them to bring a list of their medications in. I then look in the A to Z of Drug and Herb Interactions book, and they're always really surprised when I tell them that this medication is actually inhibiting them being able to absorb zinc for example, just an example, and then and that's why they get a really low immune system and catch everything in the winter, because zinc helps regulate the immune system. And then they'll learn about, you know, omeprazole is inhibiting your ability to absorb B12, and that could be why you're on the antidepressants. And you see how it kind of has this roller coaster effect where once you're on, you just cannot get off. But you can, and we've done it with many clients, and it's wonderful to hear even people that we haven't personally worked with have taken on board posts and gone, you know what, I'm going to do something about that.
Yep.
So please keep following us, because we try and share as much information as we possibly can, which we believe could make a difference in your lives. And obviously keep sharing the post, because like the case study that James read, you never know who it's going to help and impact.
Have a great evening, guys. We really hope this was useful. If it is, then just make a comment below and just share a like, as we said.
Take care, bye.
Bye.